Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Well, it is an afternoon, and lovely afternoon here in Argentina, where I am right now. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It's another edition of the tbotalent Forum, and for this time, we have the honor to have Aimee Ansari, Carrie Fisher, and Ingrid Christensen. Again, thank you, Ingrid and Carrie. I think this is the second or third time that you guys are here, so it's always lovely having you. This month, we're gonna have, as the title of the event, we're gonna have Women in Charge as leaders of our industry. So Aimee, if you wanna, I'm gonna start muting people. Sorry, it's not that I'm not nice, but it's just doing a lot of echo. And I see Stefan eating. Anyway, Aimee, the floor is all yours. I think that you're going to be a better presentation that I can do about you. So go ahead, the floor is all yours.
Yes. Hi, thanks very much. Let me share my screen. Oh, can I do this? Do I know which one I want to share? I'm like 700. Oh, there it is. Okay. I think this is the right one. Yeah, there we go. I hope that you all can see that. Hi, everybody. And thank you very much for that kind introduction and for inviting me to speak. I'm pretty excited about it and pretty honored to be on a panel with such amazing people. So thank you very much. And for those of you who are listening in, This is going to be a fairly informal presentation. I don't think of myself as an expert on leadership. So these are just really my reflections on leadership, and what I think has made good leadership throughout my career. So what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about me, a couple of slides just to kind of set the context about women in work and women in leadership positions, just to kind of give us an idea of what women, how we're represented out there. A couple of slides on what I've learned about leadership in my career and what that looks like in practice. And then some open questions about why women should lead. I will warn everybody that there's a Slido, hopefully, if it works, in here. So get ready to scan those QR codes. I am not monitoring the chat. So if anybody, if there is a question, just, speak. It's fine. I'm not going to be upset if you interrupt me, I promise. So yeah, a little bit about me. So as I said, my name is Aimee Ansari, and I'm the Chief Executive of CLEAR Global Translators Without Borders. My career, for the most part, has not been in the localization industry. For over 20 years, I worked in humanitarian and development contexts. So if there was an earthquake or a conflict, so the conflict in the Balkans, Afghanistan, places in the Middle East, the Haiti earthquake, all kinds of places like that is basically where the bulk of my career has been. And then in 2016, I joined Translators Without Borders and CLEAR Global. And I don't now very often go to crises, although I was in Ukraine at the start of that war and have spent some time in Nigeria in this job. And the way you can tell that I am no longer so active in the field is that I have a dog named Spike. And this is the first time in my career where I've been settled enough to be able to have a dog. And he's around here somewhere. So that's just a bit about me. So what I'm going to try to do is bring my reflections on leadership in particularly the humanitarian space into this forum, because I think that leadership is leadership to some extent. And a lot of the things that I've learned about leadership from a humanitarian perspective are very much applicable in any situation. Just in humanitarian crises, often it just goes a lot faster. Okay, so a little bit of context on women in the workplace. The World Economic Forum a few years ago said that the gender pay gap isn't expected to close for another 136 years. COVID has slowed down the closing of that gap quite a lot. And as a global workplace, we have not been able to make up for that lost time yet. So it's going to be quite some time before the gender pay gap is closed. And this is also reflected in women not being in leadership and management roles or as owners of companies. As you can see, the numbers globally are really, really quite low. 14% of firms have a majority of women. I'm very fortunate in that my organization, the entire senior leadership team is women and most of the managers are, but that is very, very unusual globally. And it is certainly unusual in the humanitarian world, where most of the management leadership roles are men. Okay, everybody, ready for your Slido break? This is just to get a sense of where we are in the room. Okay, can you all join that Slido? I'm going to see if I can get this up on my screen as my glasses fall off my head. Sorry. It's not there. I had practiced this, really, I did. Okay, there. It should be here. Okay. Okay. I don't know what you can see right now.
Are we supposed to scan the QR code? Okay,
Yes,
there you
please
okay.
scan the QR code. If you can't get in, then you can go to Slido, and it's hashtag tbotalent. And the first question is, what word do you associate with women in leadership? Give everybody a couple of seconds to do that. There, good. Empathy, nice. Success, 6 more people typing. Care, determination, power, a better world. Nice. I hope that's true. 5 more participants typing. Good measure. Good. Intelligence. Well, it's very nice to see that most of the participants here associated with empathy and with a lot of positive emotions. Uphill battle, grit, maybe not so positive, but you know. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay. Okay, this one's a little tougher. How do you feel about having a woman boss? That's kind of a trick question. Good. I mean, much as I expected from this audience, to be honest. I personally have had both really great women bosses and really great male bosses. I've had some good experiences and some bad experiences, as I'm sure we all have. Okay, now, but it's good to see that over half of the people here really enjoy having women as leaders in their organizations. And what do you think is the biggest challenge for women? Bias, respect, recognition, all of that. Yeah. Yeah. 3 people still typing. Glass ceiling. 4 people typing, being given a chance, overcoming prejudice. Yeah, being access. Yeah, certainly. Acknowledgements. Huh, I've never heard of the tall poppy syndrome before. That's interesting. These are all very well-known, studied pieces that women often have a hard time with this. And I personally think that this is often tied to the need to look, that women always want to look young, because that is what we are judged on often, is looking young and looking beautiful. And that is not how people generally see leaders, as young and beautiful. So yeah, it's something that I've seen a lot in my career, that that people want women to look young, but then don't respect youth. So thank you for that, everybody. I think that's super, super interesting, and also interesting that so many of us have see the same things in our careers and in our lives. Sorry, I've got a problem that the Slido is covering my, I can't get back there. Okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you for that, everybody. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the experiences that I've had with leaders and leadership and what that has looked like in practice in some of the crises I've been in. And I wanted to start out with this quote from Jacinda Ardern. A few months ago, I saw her speak at the Skull World Forum. And one of the things she said that really struck me was that that she was criticized, often criticized in her role when she was prime minister and over her political career, because she wasn't seen as being aggressive or assertive, or that because she's empathetic, it means that she's not strong and can't make decisions, that somehow being compassionate means that you're not an effective leader. And the reason why this really resonated with me was because I've always thought the opposite, that it's that compassion and that empathy that builds trust and confidence in a leader. And that is, in the end, what makes a good leader, is that people have trust and confidence in them and follow them. It's the vision and the management and all kinds of things like that, yes. But it's also that personal feeling. And so I wanted to start out with that because I think that that is a really important key to women in leadership and to leadership in general. So what happens in a major crisis? I've been in a few very big crises in my life, a lot of really big crises in my life. And what happens when this thing happens, when it's an earthquake or a conflict starts? I was in South Sudan when the war started there, or there's a drought or a famine. What is the first thing that a really good leader does? And in my experience, it's communicate. A really good leader stands up and says, there's a crisis, this is what it's about. But critically, the next thing a really good leader does is ask about their team, ask how they're doing, where they are. In a conflict in particular, are they safe? Is their family okay? Can they get somewhere safe? Do they have water, food, shelter? In South Sudan, we had armed groups going around the major towns in the country, and picking out people that were of a certain ethnic group to shoot and kill. And so everybody was in hiding, and they didn't want their mobile phones to ring. So they couldn't talk to me. They didn't want me to call them or to text them or anything. They wanted to call and text me. But that was the first thing that we had to do, was find out about the team and how they were. And the thing is that in a major crisis, not everybody's going to be able to help. Not all of your team is going to be able to come back to work or is going to be able to work. They've got their own issues happening around them, and they have to take care of their families and make sure that they have shelter and all of that. And as a leader, the leaders that I've seen that have been really effective have accepted that and said, okay, and made sure that those people have help and have support, and then worked with the others and worked with the people who do have capacity and ability to be able to help other people, because that's, as aid organizations, that's what we do. We help other people to get the basic needs, the things that they need. And one of the things one of my colleagues in Iraq did was asked the team what it was that they could do, what it is that they thought that they could contribute. And he found out absolutely fascinating things. Drivers who spoke different languages and so could help interpret, or water engineers who had a background in community mobilization and in public health, who could help with some other things. And so by asking and finding out what team members can do, can often bring out skills and respect, can often bring out skills that you didn't know they had, hidden talents that you didn't know they had. And shows a real respect for their histories and backgrounds beyond what you've hired them to do. And often in a crisis in particular, people want to help, you know, they want to do whatever they can. And they want to bring in their networks and the information that they have from their experience. And what really great leaders do is they listen to that team. So they listen to the team, they listen to the rumors that are happening, they listen to what they want to do, they listen to what people need, they consult others, they bring other voices into the room, they make sure that they are using their networks and really listening to people and what they want and what they want to do. And then make decisions very, very quickly. This part that I'm talking about now, I'm talking about the first 48 or 72 hours after a crisis. This is very, very fast. You might think consulting everybody and, you know, all of that sort of soft, touchy-feely stuff takes a lot of time. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. You can do it very, very quickly and very effectively. But you have to communicate. Once you've made those decisions, you have to make them quickly. Once you've made them, you have to, the best leaders have made them explicit, clear. They've hung things up on the wall. They've shown the org chart. They've talked about what people are going to do, who's going to make decisions, who has the power. Say it again, reinforce it, and let the team get on with their work and make things happen. And be crystal clear that this is an initial plan. They were always really crystal clear that this is going to change. Like tomorrow, it could change because the situation is changing all the time. It's a very fluid environment. In the localization industry, we're experiencing that right now, right? With large language models and the changes that have come from generative AI, things are changing rapidly. And so our plans are changing rapidly. And as leaders, I think the best leaders amongst us are the ones who are communicating regularly about what those changes mean for us and for our teams. And communicating about it again, communicate and over communicate, especially in a humanitarian crisis. Yeah, make sure you're doing it based on data. And the outcome of this in humanitarian crisis is that your teams are safe, they can come to work, they're not getting death threats, you know, they feel confident, that they're secure, that the plans are adapting and adjusting based on information and data, and they know this because of the communications that are happening. And what's really critical is that the quality of the work that we're doing, the quality of the water or the food or the shelter is that is appropriate and it's really strong and people really appreciate it. And it really helps that if all of that communication is, of course, in the right language. It helps to make sure that people are getting food and water and are being protected and aren't being attacked or harmed in any way. And that's the payoff, right? The payoff of being a good leader is that you have trust and confidence, that your team has trust and confidence in you, and that, for me, people are being helped and getting what they need. But I'd like to take a step back because there's a lot that happens before a crisis. And I think this is, in my experience, this has been what's really critical because that payoff, that trust and confidence didn't happen overnight. That trust and confidence was the good leader. They built it in everything they did. They said, they wrote, they sung, they danced, they communicated, and in the networks they built. It's a long process. In my world, we start with mission, vision, mission, values, and beliefs. And we can assume that the people around us have those same values and beliefs because they were hired on that basis, because that's why we do the work we do. I don't know how much that is in the corporate sector, but I believe it's becoming more and more critical that the leaders demonstrate values and beliefs and in everything that they say and do are consistent with those values and beliefs. And then this is a Simon Sinek thing that really resonated with me too, because it's in the everyday things that leaders do. It's in the small innocuous things, right? The coming to say hello to you every morning, walking through the office and saying hello, or going through Slack and saying hey to whoever's online. Being utterly transparent when things are going wrong, being transparent about what things are going wrong and what the plans are. When things are going right, what are the plans? Why are they going right? Remembering the names of kids. taking real holidays, sharing your networks and contacts with your colleagues. It's about being that empathetic leader, about building that trust with your team so that they have confidence in you, that you are listening to them, that you know them, that you have a sense of who they are. And in every single day and everything you do. And that's how. Because when in those humanitarian crises that I was talking about, I was talking a lot about asking your team about things, about what are the needs, what are the rumors, what are they hearing, what's the security situation. The team only talks to really great leaders who have already built that trust and confidence, who already know that that leader is going to listen to them. And that's how they get to that output. It's the everyday building the trust so that when the crisis happens, the team already has the trust and confidence in their leader. And it takes a lot of time to build that, in my experience, at least. And in my experience, you can lose it in a nanosecond. One slip, if you lie to your team, if a great leader lies to their team, that trust can be lost so quickly. Leadership is an everyday thing on the basis of the leaders that I've seen that have been great. So back to Jacinda and what I've just talked about. All of that is about empathy and compassion and being a strong leader and making good decisions based on that compassion and the listening to the teams. And I think that the criticisms that you have to be aggressive or assertive, don't take that into account. And I think that especially in humanitarian crises, when you have to move quickly and you have to make quick decisions and you have to have a team that follows, they have to have trust and confidence. And how you build that is by making sure that they understand that you understand them. Now, the last question is, are women better leaders? I personally don't think that inherently women are better leaders than men. But here are two studies from the Harvard Business Review and from Forbes, or quoted in Forbes, that both say that women are more effective in competencies and have higher levels of effectiveness in leadership. So maybe that's something we should take back. But what I really want to do is hear from you guys. What do you think? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aimee. It was great insights. There's so much and so much that we can talk about it, and I think it is a time for for the panel discussion. I think Ingrid and Carrie, if you want to join, that'll be great.
We're here.
Awesome.
We're here.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We can't see each other.
Let me put you in a spot.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, Jorgelina, Aimee, this was incredible. Thank you. It's a different world than anything I've ever lived in. Crisis management. I mean, I don't know how you do it. It's really incredibly important work. And so I'm going to ask you, you've been doing this for a while. Was there a pivotal moment in your career that shaped your leadership style?
Thanks for asking, Carrie. Yeah. The UN headquarters in Baghdad was bombed during the second invasion. And I was not in Iraq at the time. But I had a team there. And it was the first time that I had been in a leadership role in a major crisis where I wasn't in the country. And my role was suddenly to make sure that I got all of headquarters of one of the major NGOs in the world, and headquarters is a big place, on board with the way that the team on the ground wanted to go, which was counterintuitive. I had to navigate that and figure out how I was going to convince the powers that be that this was the right way to go. And it took a lot of leading with empathy and building and having built that trust and confidence in the chief executive, in the chief financial officer, in the head of security, and the head of humanitarian, so that they believed me and believed that what I was saying was reflected what the team on the ground wanted to do and was well thought through. And that meant that the team on the ground could get on and do what they wanted to do without having, you know, headquarters in their faces all the time. What about you, Ingrid?
Before I answer that, I just want to make a comment that oftentimes, as a leader, I tell my team not to be afraid to make mistakes, because what we do, and this is going to sound rather harsh based on this conversation, what we do isn't going to kill anybody, right?
No.
In the grand scheme of things, the level of work that we do at INGCO is vastly different from the work that you do at Aimee, or Aimee, that you do. And I would imagine, Carrie, that hopefully Subway's not going to, right? Okay, let's just
Right.
knock on wood. Like, hopefully there's no like major eating issues. And so, and I try to empower my team to take risks, knowing that we can't really break anything, right? I mean, of course, there's always room for improvement, and there's things that, you know, that we can fix. And but what struck me about your presentation is that you literally have people's lives in your hands. And that is a very, very different leadership position than I've ever held. So I just wanted to comment on that, on how different the gravity of the situation is, right? And the pressure that you're faced with every single day. And
yes, and that also means that you know, you do know that some decisions are not life-threatening, right. You know, and that the other day we had somebody was saying, but the policy says this, and I'm like, but I wrote the policy, we can change it. It's not, you know, change the policy, you know, if it doesn't work.
Yeah. The other thing that I picked up on that I would love for both of you to comment on is, you know, you had made a mention of mission and values, and how mission and values are so critical in organizations. INGCO is a super small team, much smaller than both of your organizations. But mission and values has always been critical from day one. It's given me the framework for which I built the company. It's a framework for me to lead the company, to grow the company, and it's a framework that we, quite frankly, that we hire and fire on, right? If somebody doesn't fit within our mission and values, it quickly becomes apparent that they're not a good fit for an organization. Now, at a small company, I believe that it's a little bit easier to frame that. And so would love your perspective from a leader's perspective. How do you, knowing that everybody is different and not everybody can be the same within an organization, but we still have to fit within these parameters of values specifically. So would love to hear your perspective on leadership within the value system.
I mean, I could start, because we didn't really have values at Subway. That didn't sound right. We didn't have, you know, something written and something we could kind of aspire to, or at least look at to improve, right? So you know, a few years ago, the relatively new CEO came up with the 4 pillars that we should kind of live our professional lives by: empowerment, accountability, fun, and bold. And if you can live those values, you can work at Subway. And that really resonated with me. I'm a team of 1 at Subway doing all the localization. And most people don't understand, you know, the intricacies of localization. And so I got to do stuff on my own and think, you know, strategically on what best fits Subway. So I felt so much better making all these decisions, because no one is going to help me. They don't know what a TMS is. They don't know what MT is. They don't know, So having that really helped me grow as a leader and just be bold and take those steps. And, I was always one to kind of ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission anyway. So that kind of fit everything that I was doing and how I am anyway. But that's how Subway has, I think, really helped all of us move forward and be as successful as we have been in the last 3 years after 10 years of being in a slump. So makes a difference.
Aimee, what about your work? And I know that the organization is very mission and value driven, right? But then there's the day-to-day aspects of doing the job, and the work has to get done. And so is there ever at any time, do the values ever get in the way of the work getting done?
I mean, I think that there are always really hard choices to make. So you want to, like, there's never, when you have a team member that is in a bad place, that, they've had, one thing after another happen to them, and their performance is going to go down. And how long do you say, okay, yes, it's fine. Yes, it's fine. We'll wait. It'll be fine. We'll help you out. Because that's a big part of who we are. And then at what point can you say, this just isn't working anymore, And I think for me, that's one of those really hard leadership decisions when you're talking about a values-based organization. You want to help, you want to be nice to people, and at the same time, there's a job to do, and we are a small team, and if one person isn't pulling their weight, then it means that other people have to cover, and everybody's fine with that for a while. But there's only so long that you can put that kind of pressure and stress on people. But one of the things that I have been struggling with a bit has been how I think about this intersection of localization and sustainability, because sustainability is also a big thing for us. But I'm struggling with that a bit. And I wonder, maybe Ingrid, if you have any thoughts on that, and, maybe give me some tips.
I have maybe a lack of thoughts, because I also struggle with how sustainability fits within our organization, right? We're a super small company. We're remote. We sell words that float around. They're not produced by anything. There's no manufacturing that goes into these words. So there's only so much that I have impact on, I believe, in my position. So I've actually been trying to figure out what are the things that I can control in my role. And I have had conversations with leaders in sustainability. And for us, it comes down to the things that we do have power over, right? Who are our vendors? And not just our language vendors, but who are we flying with? Where are we procuring travel, right? We know that travel is one of the biggest impacts on sustainability, global sustainability. So that's a big area where I think small companies and organizations can move the needle a little bit. Even things like where you're getting your water or your power from, or maybe where you're looking at where you're getting your equipment or your computers or your software. But it doesn't feel impactful enough for me that I'm doing enough on the sustainability front. I actually just finished a small business sustainability certification last week in efforts to try to figure this out. Like, how can I wrap my hands around this? How can we do more? How can we be more? How can we make an actual impact? And I don't, the short answer is, I don't know, and I'm trying to figure it out.
It's a tough one, because almost, we have to also think about the sustainability of the localization industry in general. With the introduction of AI, all this worry about translators, linguists, what does this do to them? And who's driving this, right? I think it's fascinating, and I think we're going to have to keep talking about this and sustainability within the localization industry, keeping everybody alive and in a job in this ever-changing environment, technology environment. It's something we need to keep talking about.
That is actually very interesting. And I do have a question that it will lead to something else, because you were talking about AI and everything that is coming up, and it is already here actually. So I have a question for whoever wants to take it. So if you have to pursue someone to start a career in the localization industry with everything that it's going on right now, how would you do it? What would be the probably the advice, or what are the things that you would say? Like, if any one of you, if each one of you can say something about it, that'll be great, because I know there's a lot of people that probably would say, I don't want to be in the localization industry, or I don't want to start a career there, but I think that it will be great to do, actually. So what do you think? What are your thoughts?
I
have one.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
Yeah, I have one immediate thought, and then I want to lead into some more deep thoughts. Carrie, I know you're in the same position. I'm in a position where my son is getting ready to go off to college and figure out what he wants to do with the rest of his life. Hopefully, I love him to death, but hopefully not living in my house, right? So hopefully he'll get a job at some point that pays the bills and can support himself. Not our industry certainly isn't the only industry touched by this. Every single industry in the universe, even the industries that we don't even know about yet, that don't even exist, are going to change rapidly, and everything is changing rapidly. In fact, we were just discussing, I was on a panel 2 weeks ago about technology and what technology has changed in our lifetime and how much impact that has had, right? Especially when you look at different generations, but that's a topic for a different webinar. And so I think about every industry, how we're changing, and how are we going to fill the skills gap necessary to leverage AI and the amount of technology that is coming at us fast and furiously, to be able to actually use it, make it sustainable, make it work, make it function, be able to deploy it across organizations. So that's a very high level answer to your question, but I think it's something that we should be mindful of when we start talking about AI and how AI is, as I've said before, is AI going to take our jobs away? So I'm going to turn it to you, ladies.
Well, okay. So people getting, new to the industry, personally, it's gonna be here forever. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm, got the rose-colored glasses on, or whatever it's called, but we will always need these kind of services, and AI or not. So my big thing about introducing somebody to the loc industry is, encouraging them to figure out what they want to do in this industry, because the jobs, if you've seen Adam Wooten's mountains of, jobs in the services side, there's hundreds. And, on the client side, it might be more limited, but there's still a lot of different types of jobs. And yes, they will change and they will morph over time. But it's still, for me, it's a super exciting industry to be in. And I still encourage people, my other job is figuring out how to get public schools to make language be important again. right? So, because there is always going to be a need in the localization industry for a linguist. Let me just say it there. I don't care if you're embracing AI or not. I'm both. You know, I've got it in this arm, but over here I've still got, you know, my linguist. So there's a place for everyone. And if maybe we even want to move to like the technology piece of localization, and are women being drawn to technology side of localization at this point? I'm kind of seeing that. So I was literally talking to people last week, 4 ladies last week they're all in the technology field within localization. So I'm like, will you be on a women in localization panel? Sure. They're young, you know, and technology, they're drawn to it. It's a magnet. So I really want to delve into that and see what there is for the technology jobs in the loc sector. That's my thought. If we have time to talk about it as well, if you think women in the loc industry are, you know, do we see them morphing or moving towards the technology side? Are they embracing it? We'll see. I think so.
I think they are in Africa. So when I talk about the localization industry and why people should go, I say first thing is it's a growing industry. This is not a shrinking industry. It's growing. And while language technology works for, what was that CSA research? It said 18 languages. There are 7,000 languages in the world. You know, it's 3.7 billion people, half the world's population, that aren't served by language technology. But you know, I constantly I sort of go, there's lots of space here, people. You know, there's lots to do, and in one of the things that we're doing is supporting African tech companies to develop language technology, and a lot of them are women. A lot of the people we're working with in African language technology are women, which I think is really, really good. Yeah, so that's I sometimes smile when people say, but why would I want to get into localization? Well, you know, the other 6,000 languages in the world that you know, just a thought.
Yeah.
I was just listening to an industry podcast right before this, and one of the things that was mentioned in the podcast is how few people outside of our industry know about our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it tends to be, I still think it's one of the largest industries that, you know, that is unheard of. And I think that that's partially our problem in the localization industry. I think we can do a much better job of public relations and spreading the word about what we do. That's a whole other mission. But I think that people that don't understand the breadth of and the complexity of the work that we do in all the different areas and all the different service areas. I mean, if you look at the mountain, right, there's so many different things, aspects that go into our work, that if somebody doesn't understand that they can't possibly understand how and why AI isn't going to make us disappear. Yeah. AI may be able to do a piece of what we do, and it may be able to help make our jobs faster and better, but we're still going to need humans to press the buttons. We're still going to need leaders. We're still going to need organizations to come up with missions and values. You know, we're still going to need prompt engineers. We're going to need people that are going to build the systems to tell the machines what to do. And while the skill set may certainly change, I mean, I'm sure in our experience, I mean, I had, you know, 50 dictionaries surrounding my desk, and I'm sure you did also, but I don't have any anymore. So we've certainly seen lots of changes, and I think it's up to us to adapt to the changes, be open to the changes, and continue to encourage just general knowledge and information about our industry so people know about it. I do think that that's one of our biggest responsibilities. So introducing this industry to others.
And I think one of the things, particularly with young people, is you know, as they enter the industry, is providing opportunities for them to get support and mentorship. I mean, I think that's true in any industry, but certainly this one is a very fast changing, growing industry. And I don't know if you've had any good mentorship experiences or things that have worked. I know Women in Localization does some mentorship.
Yeah, it's free. So yeah, we do have a mentorship platform called Mentorees, and I signed up for it finally, and I got 2 wonderful mentees, and the range of advice needed, it really depends on the individual. So you know, one was a quite seasoned person, and I thought, well, who's mentoring who? You know, you know, obviously, but the head of localization at a prominent company. That's all I'm going to say about it. And but we all need, you know, we all need advice, help from someone else, because they have a different experience than we've had. I find it incredibly fulfilling to help somebody, especially new people coming into the localization industry. They could be young, or they could be my age. It doesn't matter, you know, as long as you're helping somebody, you're making a difference, and you're helping the community, at least that I've been in for over 30 years. So it's a good thing.
I can echo that. I have 2 mentees right now, and I have more mentors than I could ever count. I ask people all the time for help and guidance, and I do think if I were to give one piece of advice to women in particular, it's ask for what you want, and and people want to help. But that aside, you weren't asking for my advice, but that aside, I learn more from my mentees on any given day than I would under any other circumstance. So they teach me so much every day.
Yeah, agreed.
I wonder if there are anybody in the wider place. We're talking to each other a lot, which is great. I really enjoy it. But I wonder if there are questions from anybody else.
I haven't been looking at the chat, I'll be honest. I don't see anything.
There's no questions in there, but sometimes if you force people to ask, they ask.
Oh, force people to ask. I think we've got about 8 minutes, right? Are we ending? And so it's your time to ask us some burning questions.
We have a few more minutes, but if anyone has a question, just open your mic and ask away. Normally Stefan has questions. I don't know why he's so quiet today.
He was eating. He was eating. So
I was eating an hour ago. Didn't take me that long. I'm nervous because the topic is about women, and I'm definitely not a woman. So
would you consider yourself an ally?
Excuse me?
Would you consider yourself an ally, a male ally?
Absolutely.
I would too.
I think a lot of the topics that we're discussing, though, the question that always comes back in my mind, and here I go stirring up some controversy, but when I hear some of the topics that you're addressing right now, like, for example, the first question you asked was about how I would feel about having a woman as a boss. I've had a woman as a boss for a very long time, and I don't think that how I feel about her has anything to do with her sex. It has to do with her management style. And I am secretly hoping that at some point we can stop talking about that type of topic, because it's certainly not something that I think about on a regular basis when I'm interacting with the many, frankly, our industry has more women than it has men. So if you have an issue working with women, this is not the right industry for you, because you're going to have lots of stumbling blocks, I think. Wouldn't you agree? So, I mean, that's the one reservation. I'm all for the promotion of women. I think we're actually lucky in our industry because we give opportunities to women much more than a lot of other industries. And again, maybe it's just a side note rather than a question. I would really sincerely hope that we can get away from some of the kind of questions that we asked this afternoon here and just start thinking about them as questions that need to be asked in general. I want to have a good manager. I don't really care whether, she's a particular sex. I want her to be able to pay attention, or want him or her to be able to pay attention to me in the proper way. Anyway, that was my.
I think Stefan, we all want that. I think we all want that. I think the problem is that historically our wages are grossly less than that of our male counterparts, and even the number of executive leaders within our industry. Sure, there's lots of small companies that have that are led by women, but still the number of larger organizations that have executive leadership held by females is astonishingly low.
There's I mean, and I hear what you're saying. I'm not discrediting it in any which way, shape, or form. I also think though that there's situational things that make it a lot more complex, I think, for women to progress into positions of leadership. For example, as a man, I can't birth a child, so that issue is never going to come up as an interruption of my career. For a woman, it invariably does come up, and I think a lot of women are put in front of a choice at some point in their career, whether they want to progress into, being at the top in any kind of organization is extremely competitive. And the competition doesn't stop for someone's sex or any other kind of situation in their life. And I think so when we're thinking about these issues, sometimes we have a tendency, I feel, in the localization industry to gloss over these additional complicating matters that do play into this. I don't think it's necessarily because people are less interested in having female bosses or C-suite people in the organization. I just think that there's a lot more complexities to this matter than just thinking about it as a matter of career choice, so to speak. Anyway, that's the one thing that I think about quite often, that it's more complex than just a choice of somebody to want to be in upper management, for example. There's lots of other things that come into play. Maybe not a popular opinion.
Well, I'm not sure how much time we have for me to get into that. I will just say that we should probably have a longer conversation about that. I think that's part of a probably
maybe next forum.
Yeah, there's lots of systemic issues there. There's lots of societal issues there. There's maybe there's a lot there. So
just saying.
Yeah, maybe bias. There's so much there. There's maybe the fact that most women don't ever see a woman
I didn't come across as being biased.
No, the fact that you said you didn't care what gender your boss is tells me that bias doesn't come into the picture for you.
Yeah. One of the things I was reading recently is is the problem the women, or is the problem the expectation in the job? And if we change the expectations in the job, and you're still effective, good leaders, then the problem is the job. The problem isn't the women. And I think that's the mind shift that we need to have. People have children. men and women have children. It's not just women have children.
Right. There's a few more questions in the chat before we run out of time. I think I think Colleen had a really good one. Do you want to go ahead, Colleen, and unmute yourself and ask this question to the ladies? That'll be great.
Hi everybody. My name is Colleen. I am coming to you from upstate New York. To any of my folks who are upstate's the best state. So yes, I was curious what advice you might have for women in the industry who might be experiencing imposter syndrome with maybe new roles or challenges that they're taking on, or just being generally maybe newer to the industry as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if you don't mind, I can just really quickly. Volunteering in the localization industry in many different ways. It can be a local lunch ambassador. It could be a women in localization volunteer. It could be a God, forgot her name. Sake, Global Sake. There's a lot of even Localization Institute. There's a lot of folks. Oh my gosh, Clear Global. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities to kind of cut your teeth on leadership, and no one's going to go. You're in safe spaces. People are going to help you and mentor you into, a more competent state. So this thought of imposter syndrome goes away, and believe me, it does. You have to work at it, but that would be my advice to start volunteering and asking for help from other volunteers, in the industry, and mentoring, being a mentee. It's real and it's difficult to get over, but that's the things that come top to mind.
I have a couple thoughts around imposter syndrome. One, I didn't know what it was, but I felt it, and I felt an immense amount of shame, and I felt embarrassed, and I felt like I was going to be caught, that people were going to find out that I was fake, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I had no business speaking the way I was speaking, or representing myself the way I was representing myself, and being in a position of power. And it wasn't until I had the strength to speak those words, somebody said to me, "Oh, you mean imposter syndrome?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what that is. And they were like, "Well, everybody has it." And so then I started doing some research on it. And just like a lot of things in life, and I talk about this in my book, the things that we feel that we are ashamed about, that which causes us shame, the minute we shine a light on it and we pay attention to it, the shame dissipates. And so it may sound really cheesy and really corny, but the minute that you recognize that you have imposter syndrome and you figure out what it is and you start talking about it, it all of a sudden seems to lose its power over you, and it no longer controls you, and it no longer stops you in your tracks. So you're able to move on to the next thing. And that doesn't mean that at different stages in your career, you won't be faced with imposter syndrome, because I do believe that you will be, because every single day you're going to be challenged with new opportunities for challenge and new things to learn and new things to grow. And every day it's, there's always going to be something to learn. If you're doing your job right, if you're doing your life right, then there'll be something to learn every single day. And imposter syndrome is just something that I believe the minute you figure out what it is, call it by its name, then it does lose its power over you. What were the other questions? I guess we could should we talk quickly about some young professional advice?
That'd be great. So we can maybe, we can wrap up, and maybe we can do something about that topic soon.
I think it would be a really fun topic.
Yeah.
Um,
Imposter syndrome is tough. I didn't have it in the business space. Where I've had it is women in localization of all places, right? When I became president last year, I was like, what am I doing here? I don't, I can't, these are women, I'm supposed to lead women who are C-level VPs, right? And so it's a tough one, but I think that's great, Ingrid. That's great advice. Name it. Conquer it.
how much time do we have left, Jorgelina?
I think we were supposed to end, right?
We're supposed to end. Okay. Okay. Should we leave our young professionals advice for the next one?
Do you want to go ahead
and
do you want to go ahead and just quickly answer Natalia's Gomez question, and maybe we can, have that question lead to our next, topic for the future. That'll be great.
Oh, Natalia. Okay, so she's graduating in 2 weeks with a translation degree that wants to go into industry but can't seem to find the right spaces and opportunities. Well, first of all, congratulations. You've just, finishing something and launching is absolutely amazing. The biggest advice that I would give to you, and advice that hopefully you'll take for the rest of your life, is proximity is power. And the power of your network is going to be one of the most important things that you'll be able to continue to leverage throughout your career. So get out there, meet people, connect with every one of all of us on the screen, and those that are attending. There's lots of industry professionals that are attending. We're all more than happy. I would hope to have a conversation and help put you in the right direction. As we've already talked about, there's so many different jobs and so many different ways to enter this industry. So figuring out, what your entry point would look like, and how you want to navigate that, I think is really important.
I think we have an internship position coming up and really soon, actually.
There you go.
But I mean, that said, we get 4,000 applications for our internships.
Do you really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have to have a volunteer to review.
Wow.
Well, it's a great organization. I think that says it all. Wow.
Well, yes, and a lot of people want jobs.
That too. Yes. But my advice would be to get a mentor as well. Like I said, and I don't mean to keep pushing it, because Global Sake also has a mentorship program, right? And that's free. So as far as I know, Women in Localization has the mentorship platform. It's free. And you get connected with a lot, with someone who's had a lot of experience. So just another way to get in the industry and to network. I agree, Ingrid. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Aimee and Ingrid and Carrie, for this amazing talk. I know that we're going to probably continue this conversation in another forum, because there's great questions and things that we could talk for hours, pretty sure. So again, thank you so much, the three of you, and thank you so much for everyone who attended today. Connect on LinkedIn, and we'll keep the forum going with these amazing topics and amazing leaders. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks for doing this.
Thank you,
Thanks all.
Thank you for having us. Thanks.